Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Hockey Writers Fantasy Forecheck podcast. As always, I am your host, joined by my usual co-host.
Jacob Billington.
Apologies for that mini delay there. I don't know what happened to my throat, but we will press on as usual. We'll be looking at this week's fantasy trends. And before we get started, we'll do our question of the week. Hot topic, in my opinion. We had another coaching change.
Yep.
Patrick Waugh is now the head coach of the New York Islanders. So I want to ask you, um, what players do you think he will have enough of an impact on that they'll be worth picking up for your fantasy team?
That's a really good question. So I assume you're not asking me about Ilya Sorokin, Noah Dobson, Bo Horvat, and Matt Barzal. Those are the four locks that you want to have on your roster.
Right. So who we talking more, maybe not deep in the roster, but who we talking
Yeah.
fringe pickups type guys that might be getting a good surge out of this move?
Right. So I look at a guy like I'm just pulling up the roster to make sure I'm not missing anybody, but I look at a guy
Yeah.
like Jean-Gabriel Pageau. I think Patrick Waugh is going to be the kind of guy to instill some offense in some guys that aren't really producing much, and Pageau is one of them. We've seen that he can produce quite a bit, and so I wonder if he gets back to a place that he can start producing a bit more. Um, just looking through their lineup. And I'll include Brock Nelson, one of those guys that we're not really going to talk about just because you're going to pick him up. But I don't know what he's going to do for the defense. But on forward, a couple other names that stick out to me that might work themselves into the pickup conversation. Julian Gauthier, he might get hot a little bit. Um, that's it. I don't
That's
know.
it. That's all you got.
I don't really like the Islanders roster that much. There's a couple guys that yeah, they might get hot, but there's nobody that I really look at and say that there's a lot of potential there. I know that they have a couple guys out of the lineup like Wallstrom, um, but yeah, I'm just looking at the roster for their game tonight. I don't see anybody that's a huge standout that could make that jump.
Yeah, you kind of nailed it on the head, I'd say, with Pajot being probably the biggest candidate for maybe a big push because he's got the offensive talent. We've seen what he can do over the years, and you knowing Ottawa saw what he could do on a depleted roster there a bunch of years ago.
Yeah,
So Pajot, I think, is a good pickup option. You mentioned Nelson. Nelson, I think, is already a good enough pickup. He's got 20 goals on the season. I think that's already worth having on your roster.
yeah,
But a couple other names, Anders Lee, I feel like would be a good one.
yeah,
Just because he has that goal scoring potential. I think he can get a little bit of a boost from Waz's play style and have a little bit more towards his offensive numbers.
yeah.
And as far as the young player on the roster, you mentioned him as well, which is Wallstrom. I personally am a big believer in him and what he could bring to the Islanders as far as scoring goes. And with somebody like Juan Charge, combine those two together, and he might get maybe not an obscene amount of production out of him. We're probably not talking 40 goals quite yet, but
Yeah.
by the end of the year, he maybe could be pushing the 15 to 20 goal mark if he's healthy for the remainder of the year. It really depends on when he gets put back in there and how much time is really left in the season.
Yeah, that's fair. And I really like Wallstrom too. And I think him being consistently in the lineup will be a bigger factor than Waugh. Just to put that out there. I think the team is going to be a lot better under Waugh, so I think every player will do better. But none really come to mind other than maybe Pajot. That could be a huge jump up in production.
No defenseman that you think might get an uptick in offensive production from him too, or is it kind of status quo the way their defense runs?
I don't know about production, but I can see Romanov playing better under Waugh. Just use his physicality more, get put into some better positions. He's a 21 minute a night kind of guy, and that's how he has been used. So I wonder how the system is going to affect Romanov's game. They have Adam Pelech. Um, he's fine. I don't think he's going to change too much. But again, Noah Dobson is just unreal right now.
Oh yeah, especially not he's not just unreal in real life, he's doing even more unreal in fantasy just because of how much he's really contributing. And he's really pushed himself, in my opinion, into, I'd say, top 10 fantasy defenseman status for this season, at least.
I want to go back. I'll do this for next week, and
All right.
I'll do the research for us, and I'll write down our top tens because we did each position. I don't think we have that saved anywhere. So I'll go write down our top
Nope.
tens, and maybe next week we can do a review of who we had in our top tens.
Yeah, I had an idea for next year, or not next year, next week, to kind of do our mid-season rankings for positions and kind of
Okay,
go through that. But I was gonna run through that towards the end. But either way, I think it'd be a fun idea. You're absolutely right.
perfect.
Alrighty. Now let's go to trends. We'll keep up with this year's tradition and be Debbie Downers to start it off. I got three players for my downtrend. What are you looking at so far?
I've got two for each. So you start us off.
All right. I'll start right at the top with a team that is doing great is the Winnipeg Jets, but a player that's been fairly cold and noticeably for fantasy is Nino Niederreiter. He's only got 3 points in his last 10 games, and he's only averaging around 1.5 to about 2 shots per game.
Yeah,
So he's not doing the one thing that he's really expected to do. What's good is his possession numbers aren't terrible. He's still a plus. So defensively, he's not really getting rocked in the minus category, which is definitely helpful for categories, but he's not contributing the scoring that I would be expecting out of him at this point in the season.
yeah, I agree. He did do some fantastic stuff at the beginning of the year. He got pretty hot, moved up to the top line. He spent some time there. Alex Iafallo spent some time there, but now he's back down in middle six, and he's not producing very much, but he's still fine. I don't know if I would drop him. I think I would hang on to him, see if he gets hot again. Especially if, like, we're in a deeper league, so I think of our league, and if I have him in our 18-man league, I'm not going to drop him. There's nobody of his caliber on free agency. You can probably trade him for at least something.
Yeah, I wouldn't say he's a drop candidate. It's more of a sit versus start kind of guy right now. If you have options and you got multiple guys playing on the same day, and it's like, do I put Niederreiter in on wing or do I put somebody else in? I think there's other candidates that are better than him at the moment.
Yeah. I'll jump into actually before I jump into mine, I just want to
Yeah,
give my condolences. The Buffalo Bills just lost. I know you're not a big football guy, but
that's unfortunate.
Bills are out, Chiefs are on, moving on. So that just happened now.
I'm
Um,
sure I'll hear the shouts of pain throughout the halls for the rest of the night.
yeah. So first I think we've talked about him a few times in both positive and negative trends. But Andrei Kuzmenko, he's got no points in his last 10 games, and he was scratched one time during that 10 game stretch. So 11 Canucks games and he doesn't have a point. I don't get it. He was on fire last year. He was high end candidate for regression because he was shooting so incredibly high. But he's just not doing it this year. I could see him getting moved, maybe to Pittsburgh if the Canucks go after Gensel. That's a move I could see really benefiting him and the Canucks and maybe the Penguins. But yeah, like as of right now, there's no point in having him in your lineup. He's gonna get hot, but I can't justify having a roster spot dedicated to him right now.
So you'd drop him or you'd sell him? What's your play on Kuzmenko then?
I would see if he can sell him, but right now, I don't know who's going to be paying too much for him, so he might be a drop candidate if you can't get anything for him.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see because you're right. He was one of our, heavy drop off kind of candidates for this year based off of how he was shooting last season. But it shouldn't be this much of a production regression. It
Yeah,
shouldn't go from potential perennial 35 to 40 goal scorer down to, he might finish the season with 18 to 20 goals. And it's getting to be ridiculous at this point. Me personally, I already traded him in one league when I had him, and I traded him early because I was like, this is going to get ridiculous if this keeps up, and it just has kept up, unfortunately, throughout. Even back to November, I would even argue he's had his slump, and it's just you're right. He's not worth keeping on your roster at the moment.
You know what's absolutely insane?
What?
Could you imagine the Canucks if he was on a 45 goal pace?
God, they'd
Like,
have what? Probably seven more wins, six more wins, and
yeah,
just be torrid pace towards breaking some scoring record, probably.
yeah, that's insane. I just that kind of popped into my head there. Like they're doing so well, and they have Kuzmenko, who he's not doing nothing, but relative to the expectations coming in, he's not even coming close to meeting them.
At this point, did they sacrifice Kuzmenko to the hockey gods to bring Brock Besser's scoring up to par?
Pretty much, yeah,
It's unfortunate. Unfortunate for Kuzmenko, very fortunate for Brock Besser.
yeah.
Speaking of scorers who aren't doing enough, I got Tyler Toffoli on mine. Was a big part of New Jersey's scoring at the start of the year, but right now he's got 3 points in his last 9 games.
Hmm.
And if the Devils are gonna, kind of pull out of this slump that they're in over the past while, he's really going to be a big part of it because he has the potential to be a big player. He's very good at scoring goals. He's not going to do much in many other departments other than goals and assists for your fantasy team, but if he gets hot, he gets hot, hot.
Yeah, I'm just bringing up his stats right now. I think, so I'm just looking at his goal totals over the past couple of years. Um,
He's
so he
basically
had
a perennial 25 goal scorer.
he's not though. I mean, he spent a lot of time injured, and traded between teams. Oh, sorry, yes, he is. So yeah, he spends a lot of time moving between teams. He spent a lot of time injured, but he's only scored 30 goals twice in his career. That's
Mhm.
shocking to me. And he's only hit 25 goals three times, four times. Like I think we overrate him. Like he's very good. He's a great asset, but his 34 goal year last year, 73 points. I think a lot of people overrated him coming into the season, which means he has higher expectations. I think he's doing just fine right now. He obviously, like you said, he's on a scoring slump, but he's on pace for 35 goal or not 35, 30 goals or so. And 55, 60 points. That's not bad at all. But like you said, he is in a scoring slump. And so I definitely wouldn't drop him. He's not having a bad year when you look at the totals, but he is very streaky this year, which is a little bit unlike him.
Yeah, I think what I kind of like about him as a fantasy asset is that when he scores in bunches. So he's
Yeah.
not always just chipping in a goal. He'll get the 2 goal game and then he'll get the 2 point night. He chips in points kind of in bunches, and I think that adds a little extra value for that third, fourth kind of winger in your lineup.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I really like that I picked up Igor Sharangovich because he's outproducing Tyler Toffoli, which is something I never thought that I would say, especially after that trade. But it's worked out well for the Flames, which is really good because not much has over the past few years.
Yeah, Sharon Govich, we've talked about a couple times as the
Yeah,
Hawkeye, and it took a lot of effort not to put him on my list again,
I
just
know.
because I was like, he just keeps doing it.
Yeah,
So uptrend continues to be Sharon Govich. If he's
yeah,
still not on your team and he's still sitting in your waiver wire, pick him up.
yeah. Last one I got for the downtrend, John Tavares. He has no points in his last seven
Yep.
games. Only has one goal in his last 10 games. He's just not on a good stretch right now. The Leafs are kind of tumbling down the hill a little bit. They're in a wild card spot right now, which I did not think I would say halfway through the season. But yeah, John Tavares. I mean, he has decent totals on the year. That's not the problem, but he's on a really, really bad stretch of hockey right now. Defensively, he's fine. Like for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he's not doing bad, but for fantasy, it's not a good stretch of hockey.
Yeah, the Leafs are in a middling. I'm looking at the standings right now. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. So you expect more out of the Maple Leafs, especially with how much firepower they have up front between Matthews, Tavares, Nylander, and Marner, that core four. So if they're in that slump, it's because one of these players or more of them isn't producing. And at this point, it's unfortunately Tavares. I don't think he's a drop candidate either. It's just a matter of time before he gets back up
Right.
to the swing of things. But it hurts your fantasy week when somebody like that doesn't produce. So
Yeah.
I agree with the downtrend for sure on him.
And I'm looking at the wild card right now. So Toronto has 52 points and is in the second wild card spot. Within 4 points of them, there are the Washington Capitals, New Jersey Devils, New York Islanders, and Pittsburgh Penguins. Those are all teams that could easily take over a 4 point
Mm-hmm.
gap at this point in the season. If you're a Toronto fan, are you worried right now?
Oh, absolutely. And
Yep.
I feel like the Tampa Bay fans should be in the same boat. It's
Yep.
it's not a great trend when you see that problem coming up in this scenario, especially with how good the top of the Atlantic has been between Boston and Florida. Detroit's been pretty solid as well, not to count them out at all. They're holding on to that third spot, but when you're Tampa and Toronto and you've always been fighting in that top three to kind of
Yep.
hold those spots and really lock down your playoff position, to be in a position where you might lose it out to somebody like Pittsburgh or Washington or New Jersey, that's definitely got to get you a little bit of panic.
Yep.
All right. I got one last one, and it's going to hurt every fiber of my soul to say this, but it's time to admit what it's time to admit. We got Devin Levi up on the block here.
Yeah.
And it's a sad and unfortunate circumstance, but we can't say that it's completely uh, you know, unpredicted when it comes to rookie goaltenders. Right now, he's got one win in his last four starts, and in the other three starts besides that win, he's been scored on four or more times. Now, that's not by any means a helpful fantasy trend, especially when you're looking for some help from your depth goaltending, which at this point, if you have any Sabres goaltender, whether it's Levi or Luukkonen, it's really a depth goaltender. They're probably not one of your starters.
Right.
And Levi's not the answer right now. Luukkonen might be. He just got two straight shutouts, and his goals against and save percentage are doing well. But it's
Yeah.
really up to the fact that Buffalo is still just bad.
Yeah. Buffalo's got. I mean, I'm not one to talk here covering the Senators, but
You can rag on it all you want. It's fine. I get it.
Buffalo's got a lot of work to do before they start getting some consistent. Like Levi would be fine if the Sabres were good, right? He's not at the point yet that he's going to carry them into that category of being good. He might be able to in 3 4 years, but right now he is going to be a product of how the team is in front of him. Right? He'll be able to hang his own. He'll be able to hang with the big kids, but as of right now, he's a product of the team in front of him. That's the easiest way to say it.
Yeah, and that's why if we're talking just redraft leagues,
Yeah.
he could be a drop candidate compared to some other waiver goalies that might be doing better right now. But if you're in a dynasty or a keeper league, he's still someone that you can hold on to if you are one of those people that are holding on to hope that, well, Buffalo was good last year. They're just really bad this year. Maybe next year they'll be better. And you really, hold the spirit of Buffalo of next year is our year type thing going on. Then, by all means, hold on to him. But that's really a your prerogative thing. I can give you arguments both ways for him.
It's year what? Year 11, 12 of next year's our year? 13,
13.
13.
It'll
Wow.
be 13 if we miss it this year.
Wow. That's not good.
Imagine that. Imagine that pain.
Ottawa's going on 7 this year, and that's oof.
Double it.
Yeah.
Double it, give it to the next team.
I was just
Uh, I don't want it anymore. As far as downtrend teams go, we got the Islanders who are 2-6-2 in their last 10. That's kind of a hence the coaching change type of thing. That's not really a shock when you're
yeah.
playing that bad. And the other one is the New York Rangers, who are 3-6-1, and they are losing their headway on the Metro, and it is getting out of hand for them. I'd start panicking a little bit if I was a Rangers fan.
The Philadelphia Flyers could have taken over first in the Metro today.
Yeah.
Is that not like the most mind-boggling thing ever?
Do we officially qualify the Flyers in the same boat as the Coyotes under the wagon status?
100% a wagon.
Like,
100%.
even the Coyotes aren't doing spectacular, but that Coyotes wagon is just fun this year. It might be time to get on the Flyers wagon too.
Yeah. I and I said this in the summer when we were just doing our preseason stuff. The Winnipeg Jets are also a wagon.
Being
I
first in their conference, yeah, it's or not conference, the in their division, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I think they're just out of first in the league too, aren't they? Aren't they like 2 points
Yeah,
out?
they're first. Oh no, they're
I think
yeah,
the
two
Canucks are
points
first,
2 points behind Vancouver with 2 games in hand. They're first by points percentage.
but not by points, which is what counts currently.
Yeah.
Either way, spectacular. All right, switch it into uptrend. Once again, I got three. So I'll start it off with somebody that you know what we're talking about the Flyers. I'll jump right into the Flyers player. I got Joel Farabee, and he has
Okay.
been playing great. He's got a 6 game point streak going. He's got 5 goals and 9 points in that span. And just like we said, the Flyers are trending up. And as the Metro continues to kind of struggle its way and kind of even itself out, the
Yep.
Flyers, there's going to be some big value players coming out of Philadelphia right now. And I think Farabee's right at the top of that list.
Yeah. I'm actually just gonna jump right into mine and clump him in because I also have
Yeah.
a Flyers player, and that's Morgan Frost. And
Yeah.
all of the same things you just said about him. He's got 6 assists in his last 5 games. He's only rostered at 9% on Yahoo, which is insanely low. He's out of the doghouse now. He was getting low ice time. He was scratched. Things weren't working with Tortorella. It looks to be going a lot better now. So Farabee and Frost both elevating their spots in the lineup is amazing for the Flyers.
It's two good young players that you can get a lot of value out at face value. And
Yep.
if you're in keeper dynasty leagues, depending on how many players you're able to hold on to, might have some value down the stretch there too, depending on how they finish out the year.
Yep.
Second player I'll do is Nazem Kadri. We touched on Sharon Govich with the Flames. We touched on Blake Coleman with the Flames a couple of times. So for Kadri, he's finally, hitting his stride appropriately. He just had an 8 game point streak that was broken, but he was on fire, and we'll still qualify him under that status. He had 6 goals and 11 points during that 8 game point streak, and he's playing up to the standard that you would want him to be at this point.
Yeah, he's not back to the Avalanche level Kadri that we know, or that we saw, but he's back to average Kadri. He's gonna be I don't have his stats up in front of me, but like he's playing like a 60, 65 point guy, which is what you sign him to be. Like you're not signing him to be a 90 point player, right? But he's a physical, good second line center that you want on your team. And I'm gonna kind of add on to that and say if Lindholm gets traded, he's gonna be the top line center. He's gonna be the go-to guy. There's no question about it. And so it'll be really interesting to see kind of how he takes in that role.
As far as stats go, I pulled them up real quick. 46 games played, he got 16 goals, 21 assists. That's 37 points. He's a +1 too. So,
Yeah,
those stats are about kind of where you'd expect him to be at that 65 point pace. And
yeah,
that's why I was saying he's up to the standard that you would expect him to be at this point in the year. And I think
yeah,
that has a lot of value. And especially since he probably isn't as highly rostered as he was towards the middle of this season.
yeah.
Who else you got? I got one more.
My last one is Miles Wood. So he missed what was it, 6 or 7 games or so with the Avalanche. When he came back, he's played 3 games so far. He's got 5 points already, all assists, I believe. He's listed in that third line role, but he's getting a lot of trust out of Jared Bednar right now, and he's getting a lot of ice time, and he's getting put in really good positions to succeed. You looked at the signing for Miles Wood, and you're like, all right, that's a good defensive third liner that you're just kind of going to throw out there when you can. But no, like right now, he's getting great opportunities. And the Avalanche, they're incredible. There's so much offense running through that entire lineup. But yeah, right now Miles Wood, 100% pick him up. See if he can stay hot since coming back from the injury.
Yeah, he's never been that big kind of point scorer type guy. Throughout his time with the Devils, his career high in goals was, let's see, it was 19, and that was in 17-18.
Yeah,
And right now he's at 8 goals, 9 assists, and that's in 42 games. So he's kind of along that steady pace that he's really always been on. And reliable depth forwards are really, really valuable at this point in the year, especially for fantasy, because it's those bonus points that are going to win you your weeks. So
yeah,
somebody like Wood can really give you that extra boost to kind of put you over the edge in maybe a couple categories or get you those few extra points.
yeah.
Last one, and I'll qualify it as a big name. I got Brock Faber from the Minnesota Wild, and the Wild haven't generally been doing great over the past couple of weeks. Faber's been steadily becoming a spectacular defenseman and top defenseman for them. He's getting some huge ice time numbers. There's even been points where he's been hitting the 30-minute mark when he plays games. He's averaging just under 25 minutes per game. And recently, he's got 7 points in his last 4 games, and he's rolling along. He's being a producer. He's being a very good defenseman for them overall. And for considering the fact that he's 21 or 22 years old, that's a key defender that you can use in your dynasty leagues. And he's somebody that I would absolutely consider picking up if you haven't already.
Yeah, if you have room for him, pick him up for sure. I think he's going to win the Calder this year. I know the defensemen don't get a lot of attention unless they're scoring 60 points, which he's not going to do. But I think he's going to win the Calder this year. And all of his play kind of leads to that, other than the point totals, which aren't even terrible for the kind of defenseman he
Quinto's
is.
still pretty good.
Like he's doing pretty good. He just kind of gets you a little bit of everything, right? He's great, and he does not look like a rookie. He looks very comfortable out there. Um, and can we talk about like how much of a win-win trade that was for Fiala?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I love Fiala as a player as a whole, and
Yeah,
I love having him in my fantasy lineup even more. But seeing that mutual benefit go to both teams is it's fun for the league,
right.
and it's better for everybody. So that's something that you really like to see, where it's not here's a winner, here's a loser. It's both teams get really darn good players, and everyone's having more fun for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, going into the uptrend teams real quick. It's not a lot of movement. Oilers just upped their win streak to 13. So same thing about the Oilers. Nothing to really add there. The Lightning have won 5 straight, and then we already talked about the Jets, who are 9-1-0 in their last 10.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of movement for the hot teams. Everybody who's been hot is still hot this week. So keep up with that trend in that direction, really.
And the Winnipeg Jets, if you're looking for plus minus help, get somebody on the Jets. They have not allowed more than 3 goals in a game in 34 games. That is insane. They're When do they play? They play tomorrow, and they'll have a chance to tie the modern day record for that. Since it was kind of tracked. Um, that's that's insane.
Yeah.
Like
Would
they play the
you
Bruins though.
quick question before we do the outro? Would you make a big move for Hellebuck in fantasy?
100%.
You would
I
say so?
I would trade so much for Connor Hellebuck. Do you have Hellebuck? No, you
I
don't.
do not have Hellebuck.
You have
In our league, I have good old Stu Skinner. I have Nedeljkovic. I should know this. I have
you have Aiden Hill on IR.
Aiden Hills on my IR, and my other
Connor
goalie
Ingram.
is Ingram. Right. I don't know why I forgot about Ingram. He's like my best goalie.
Yeah,
Either way,
yeah.
I don't have Hellebuck, but I would trade any one of them for Hellebuck if anybody's listening.
I'm sure you would.
All right. That's about going to do it for this week's episode of Fantasy Forecheck. So thank you everyone. Thanks again everybody for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your preferred listening channel, as well as the Hockey Writers Podcast and YouTube pages, where you can find anything and everything else hockey related. You can always follow me on Twitter at Strozyk67.
And I'm there at Jacob Billington.
And you can feel free to leave us a like, leave a comment, and we will keep you up to date on all things fantasy throughout the year. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time.